Man, the thing is, though, is I'm a little bit thirsty, maybe even dehydrated.
Are you dehydrated? Thirsty and dehydrated are two different things. I don't know if you know this, but it's time to learn on the podcast. If you're thirsty, that is the beginning of dehydration. You're already, I believe, 2% dehydrated if you can feel thirst. How would you fix it? Trent, what's Peaches going to do?
Get an IV. Is there anything that works as well as an IV? I don't know, because that's typically what I try to do.
I am glad you asked. Especially me being the medical professional. Everybody, clear some room. What if I told you that there was a beverage that has IV level hydration and you don't need to know how to stick an IV to do it? Would that be something that you'd be interested in, Trent?
Yeah, because every time someone tells me that they know how to stick an IV, it usually turns into a disaster. Also, I enjoy great flavors. I enjoyed, sitting down with a nice cold beverage when I'm feeling a little thirsty or dehydrated. Watermelon, orange, dragon fruit. Any of those things ringing a bell there, Peaches?
It's obvious
peach
that
mango,
we're talking about
peach
Trent.
mango.
It's obvious.
Hop on over
it's
it.
Obvious.
Yeah. Well,
we're talking about Hoist.
You can
Is
get
that what
it
we're
other
talking
places,
about?
but we would rather you go to drinkhoist.com and use our promo code One's Ready. That way you can get yourself a discount, because again, if you're at the commissary or you're at Kroger or wherever you're going, wherever you could buy Hoist, hey, that's great, but you're not getting a discount. So go ahead, head over to drinkhoist.com and then use the promo codes One's Ready. But there are things that we do that, make us dehydrated, make us thirsty. And that is training. And we use equipment to train. So where would one go if I wanted to focus to get some equipment that would, help me train for AFSPECWAR or Ranger or Green Berets or Navy SEALs?
Well, there can't be one place that has all that gear. Let me just Google. Bring that up, young James. Look, exactlty.com. So if you go over to exactlete.com right now, that's ATACLETE.com, exactlete.com, you can check out all kinds of pre-made kits for everything that you need for training. Do you want to be a Coast Guard rescue swimmer? Do you want to be an AFSPECWAR, SEALs, MARSOC, Recon? Any of these things, everything from rucks to weight vests to fins and masks, booties, everything you need all the way up to supplements. Go over and check out exactlete.com. And you can see their whole range of gear over there at exactlete.com. And you can use our code ONESREADY at checkout to get a sweet discount.
Absolutely.
If you respect yourself and value your time, you'll just go there instead of spending 2 hours searching all over the internet for stuff that you're not even sure if is the right thing. Is that what you would do?
Yep.
Go to exactlete.com?
That's what I would 100%. Do. Yeah. It is the most efficient. It's the gear that you need to train. It's the most close gear to the stuff that you're actually going to use in the pipeline. They use the exact pieces of gear when they can. And once again, you can get everything you need in a single kit. So go check out exactlete.com. Use the code ONESREADY at checkout. And now on to this awesome podcast with our host, Chief TJ Gunnell.
We're trying to go a little bit more professional. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. You're in the team room, and we got the crew back together, and we have brought on Chief TJ Gunnell. He is a TACP by trade. You spent most of your time as a soft TACP, though, from what I understand.
Yep.
So welcome. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
It's kind of been like 2 years in the making.
Yep.
I mean, you and I worked each other when you were at AFSOC headquarters. I was at SOCOB headquarters. But we kind of wanted to give you some time in your new position before we brought you back on. So before we go into your legislative liaison gig, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, build some of those bona fides, maybe a little bit about being a soft TACP and all that kind of good stuff, and then we'll press.
Okay, too easy. So, hey, thanks for having me on. You're right. It has been 2 years in the making. It's good to be a fan from afar, but now to be on and be able to provide something besides just coming on and mouth breathing with you guys. So I appreciate that. The first, a little bit about me. So I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, Aaron, OH.
I was already on it, baby.
There it is.
From
there it is.
Ohio State University.
That's right.
Get out of here.
Yeah, so my daughter, so I have 3 daughters. My oldest daughter is a junior at Ohio State right now. So she's out. She's gonna have an alumni in the family soon, so it'll be great. But I have 3 daughters. One's a junior at Ohio State. Then I have a 11-year-old and a 7-year-old. So girl dad. Been married 17 years. Came in 2004. I started working at. Went to college for a little bit. Decided, hey, there's 2 wars going on. I'm a happy, healthy individual, and I need to get in the fight. I almost did join the Navy out of high school. I went and talked to a recruiter who was I played sports with his brother. The older brother was a Navy recruiter, and I kind of almost joined then. Kind of had a calling towards it. Went and talked to him, and he's like, maybe hold off, go to college for a little bit, and then decide what you want to do. So maybe not the best recruiter. Who knows?
How many people in our career field though have a story exactly like that? Like I was going to join the Navy, but they were at lunch. No kidding. Same sort of story with me. Ohio, the Marine Corps guy was at lunch, and that was no kidding. I walked in and I was like, "This door's open. Let's go check this guy out."
Yeah, well, just to go further with that. So then I talked to him in 2000 at the time when I was graduating high school. Decided not to do it. Went to college for a little bit. That didn't work out. I was going to school, blah blah blah. Ended up having my daughter. Started working at Nationwide Insurance at the corporate headquarters in Columbus, Ohio, just to make a living. And while I was going to school for a little while, absolutely horrible. Was not for me to sit in a corporate office. I did that for 3 years. It was the worst thing I've ever done in my life. So when everyone's like, "Oh, I love corporate America," I'm like, that is not for me. That may be your thing, but it is not my thing. And so I walked in. I said, hey, I'm going to do this now in 2004. Like I said, I had originally told my parents, and I went and talked to an Army recruiter. And I was like, hey, I'm going to do a Ranger contract. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to give it the Rangers and I'm going to do this thing. And my dad was like, whoa, pump the brakes. This is like at the height of 2004 when the Army is just getting crushed with IEDs. You're watching,
every video.
Humvees just getting destroyed every day in the streets of Baghdad. Yeah. Yep. And so my dad's like, whoa, let's hold on a second. How about you just go talk to the Air Force recruiter? And, I'd already talked to the Army recruiter. I'd already gone in there. He was ready to set me up. And I was like, all right, listen, I'll talk to the Air Force guy, but only if he has something similar to what I want to do. And, lucky for me, the Air Force recruiter was not at lunch that day. He was actually in the office, and I got a hold of him, and he ended up, talking me into this. And so it ended up being the best move, and I took it on and came in, and been a TACP for a little over 18, almost 19 years now. As Peachy said, I started 4 years in the conventional side. I did 40 years with 80 Deuce, the 1-4 ASOS out of Bragg. Did that, decided I wanted to go to the soft side. Came over, went to the 17th STS, what was the 17th ASOS at the time. Transitioned halfway through the time I was there. Did that for 5 years. And then when the 26 STS was standing up in Canada, I had the opportunity to go out there. So I volunteered to go out there. I did 5 years out there. Then came to AFSPECWAR headquarters, worked with Peachy for 2 years while he was at SOCOM. And then transitioned into this program that I'm currently in with the legislative liaison thing about 2.5 years ago. So I got about 6-8 months left. And that's where we're at now.
We always say that this job, these lives are a choose your own adventure, and you just laid out that exact choose your own adventure from conventional side to soft side to those additional duties that people don't even know that we can do that you're in now. I want to focus on something that you let in with, because we get this question all the time, and it's about family, and I feel stuck in my life. And what were the conversations like? Because you were married, you had a kid, you had you had a nice, easy corporate job. I actually just watched Fight Club yesterday. So as you're describing this corporate job, I just picture you like making little haikus about the worker bee, and the queen is not their slave. I love it. The queen is their slave. So what was that conversation like when you were like, hey, listen, I got it. This whole Ohio, living in Columbus on the banks of the Olentangy River. Sure. It's great working for this insurance company, but I want to go do something in 2004 in the height of it, just like you were saying, man, we were getting it on. It was a large scale DTAC environment. Like we were doing the job. What was that conversation like with your spouse?
So I'll give you a little inside personal info. I was not married. So I had a kid in college. Oh, okay. Not married. So I was a single dad. I had my daughter half the time. Her mother had her half the time. So the conversation was more with my 2-year-old, if you can have one at that age, and my family about, hey, if I go and do this, what does that look like for you all? When I'm gone, what does that look like for her down the road? But to be completely honest, I'll just lay out my personal stuff on the table for you. I really didn't have another choice. I was not making good money at Nationwide. I was working 2 to 3 jobs at that time just to pay child support, to, keep her going, to have her half the time. I was living with my parents. I was probably never going to get out of there. I was paying for school at the time too. So it was almost one of those times where you just have, it was an inflection point. I had to make a decision. Am I going to do this the rest of my time, or am I going to answer this calling? Because to me, this is my calling. Like what I'm doing right now, wearing a uniform every day, showing it's my calling. It's what I'm supposed to do. I love it every single day. At year 19, I love it. So it's definitely where I'm supposed to be. It just it was a little bit harder to get to that point when it comes to making that decision. But man, it was, I tell people all the time, it was the hardest decision I ever made in my life. Because when you walk away, and my daughter was 2 at the time, but she was never going to have the life she has right now, or she's going to college for free on the post 9/11 GI Bill, and she's getting paid to go to college. That was never going to happen. So yeah, man, it was miserable. So
we are going to pull that clip, and I'm just going to play it on repeat every time somebody sends us a DM about how they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I can make this change in my life." Yeah. I'm going to play that clip, Chief, and I'm just going to play it on repeat for them until they believe themselves. So
yeah, you have to want it. You got to want it.
Yeah, you show up to basic training, you get through basic training, and you hit that TACP, the first part of the TACP pipeline. What was the vibe like back then? Because like I said, you were training to get into the pipeline to immediately go, and you already laid it out, but you got out of the pipeline and immediately hit the 82nd. What was your experience like in the pipeline as you were getting ready with Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria, on the short horizon?
Sure. Well, at the time, a lot of the instructors at the schoolhouse. So I went when it was at Herbie still. So for all of you that understand if you've been to Herbie and you know where the STS compound is right now, that was a giant open field at the time that I came through, where TACP had their PT pits. And so you would leave the dorms that were over on Tully Street, and you would ruck your butt over there in the mornings and, have PT on that field. And the TACP, what was it? The O course was right across the street from that, where now is like an overflow tent at STTS, where they do selection and assessment and all that stuff, ANS. Yep. But it was a cool vibe, to be honest. It was. I came through in the summertime. I got there in May and went through, I think, October and November. So it was Herbie hot the entire time we were there. Ooh. A lot of sound PT. All the instructors had combat experience. They were the initial instructors that had initial Iraq, Afghanistan experience, and had come there maybe for a little bit of a break, because early on TACPs were doing 6 to 12 month rotations with the Army. If they were doing 6, if they had enough guys to rotate out at 12 months. If they didn't, they were doing full 12 monthers. So the instructors were all those guys that, combat experience. So they were more than ready to get you ready. And then what I liked at the time was, so there were 3 airborne slots for my class, because the 82nd or the 173rd, where you were going to graduate and go support as a TACP, that's how many A1C or airman openings, positions they had on their UMD that they needed filled, right? So they said, hey, we could take 3 guys this course. So there were 3 jump school slots with the intent that you were going to roll into the 82nd or the 173rd after graduation. But they made it a competition. So day 1, week 1, who wants to go to airborne school? And there's 25 guys in my class, and you'd be shocked. Only about 15 people raised their hand. Not all 25. I mean, I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, because it's scary, because that stuff is terrifying. Holy cow. Every time it comes up, I'm like, wait, guys, we're going to jump out of an airplane. This sounds dangerous. Let's pass, you know?
I heard you guys talking a couple of weeks ago about the barracks. So we stayed in those open door barracks. The door never closed. And somebody wakes up 3 hours early because they're afraid they're going to miss formation. And you're already getting to formation 3 hours early. But that's a little off topic. But anyway, going back, so you competed. So it was the entire time you were in TACP schoolhouse. You competed against 15 people, whoever wanted to go, for 3 jump slots. So they counted everything: dorm inspections, your written tests, your field test, anything and everything they could assess you on. They would, there was smoke sessions, how you did at a smoke session, all those things. So at the end of the day, me and 2 other guys ended up getting jump school slots. I had orders for Campbell. They turned those off, and you get jump school slots. And then if somebody wants to take your orders, they do that. But that was essentially the vibe at the TACP schoolhouse at the time.
So you competed to go to Fayetteville? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I
You
did.
competed to go to Fort Benning, Georgia. What?
Yeah.
What an idiot!
I know.
He volunteered for jump school
Perspective.
and then immediately to them All-American boys, them Deuce Aces, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. To me, though, that was the path that from where I wanted to go, because ultimately the path was to get to the regiment and to get to supporting, the Rangers at some aspect. That was my goal. And so one of the instructors, at the TACP schoolhouse, he had come from there at one point and said, hey, if this is what you really want to do, these are the places you need to go, because they will set you up for success in the next phase of what you want to do.
Has that competing for the job that you want changed at all throughout your career? Like
no,
every step of the way?
I think every job. No, I think you guys know. I think every job you go to. I competed to get to the 17th. Competed to get to, like you guys are saying, the 14th. The 2-6 was more of a volunteer thing. I don't know that I had to compete for that, but that was a voluntary thing. And then I think you're kind of always in that assessment on against your peers on trying to be the best, or who's going to be the best to go fill it, especially when you're an AFSOC and the competition and the level of what you are in the team room every day against with guys. I think that kind of, there's an unspoken competition there. You still want to be a really good teammate, obviously, but there's always that healthy competition that you're competing against those guys. And then obviously it was an assessment to get into this program.
I will never forget being deployed. Trent, I'm going to interrupt you because I hate you and I don't respect you as a person. I will never forget, my first team leader. We were in Iraq with a Ranger security teams, like 2009 or 2010. And one of the guys, we had a competition every single day. To end every single day, we had some sort of skills competitions. The sun was coming up and we were getting off alert. We did a competition. And this young, E4 non-tabbed Ranger guy was just like, I don't understand, when did this become a competition? And my team leader, who was a Crow, old TX, if you know Rod Taylor, TX looked at this guy and he goes like, when was it a competition? The day you raised your hand. The second that you swore into this thing, it became a competition. We are always competing. Yeah. Go ahead, Trent. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm good. I like the competitions. We get those questions all the time. But I was going to ask, you go to the 82nd and people are, at least I would like to know, going to the 17th after that from the 1-4, what's the culture change like? And was it worth it? Like, why would you want to go from the, 80 Deuce? Like, those guys were pretty busy at the time too. So I'm assuming you got some good work in there. But what was the big difference going from that unit over to the 17th?
Big difference. The big difference was just the level, I think, of what you were working with. So the 82nd was good. I had a good flavor. I went to Afghanistan for my first deployment with them, but I got a taste of I think the SOF community at that point. So I got lucky. The first deployment I went with, like I said, with the 82nd to Afghanistan, but then I got picked again, I guess you want to call it. There was a internal competition that nobody knew about. There was a company minus of 82nd. So 2 platoons minus the 3rd platoon stayed at Salerno. 2 platoons that got put out on the Pakistan border with an ODA team. And so they had a JTAG out there that was supporting the company minus. And I, at the time, was a ROMAD. And they were like, hey, we need a ROMAD to go out here. He's going to stay a little longer and go out there with him. So Peaches actually knows this guy. Keith Griefer, was the JTAC that I got paired up with. And I got lucky. He was with the company minus, but the ODA team had a TACP at the time who was matched like. And so I got introduced to the TACP, soft TACP community at the time that way. So I spent a couple months out there with those guys with an ODA team, doing patrols, doing Overwatch on this little tiny fob right on the Pakistan border, where they let me control, while they were standing there listening. They let me, they were teaching me everything. It was a very intimate, small team environment, which, is very notorious for the soft community. Whereas the conventional side, much bigger. That was very out of the ordinary for the 82nd to have that kind of small, company minus. They usually didn't have JTACs out there, but the level of, intensity that they were seeing at that outpost, we needed to be out there. So that's where I got it. And then coincidentally, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but networking, having a strong network helped me down the road. So MS ended up being he came home from that deployment and became the 17th squadron superintendent. And so I said, okay, great. I'm going to continue to submit a package. But at the time, you had to have JTAC experience. So I had to come back and then find another deployment after I got my JTAC qualification to then get my foot in the door in the 17th. But yeah, it was small team. It was the next level. It was, you know what I mean? Like it was, I don't want to say the 82nd is JV, but when you're talking about going from, learning, that was that level. And then I wanted to move up to the varsity level, which the Rangers, to me, that's what it felt like. I mean, they are the epitome of a small infantry unit. They are incredible.
No, and I think the 17th epitomizes that as well, because across special tactics, anybody that actually has a chance to go work with the 17th, maybe it's, on an MLAT or something like that. I have yet to meet a 17th dude that is sloppy, overweight, unprofessional, doesn't have their stuff together. Like these guys are incredibly professional. They're, like I said, I haven't met one that's overweight, but they're usually in really good shape. They are some incredible JTACs, incredible operators. And it's funny because me and Deutman, right?
Yeah.
We were actually talking about this because he came from that unit.
Sure.
And we were always saying, like, okay, so what is it that gets those guys, makes them so professional? Is it that they are around the Rangers and they live and breathe with them all the time? Is it the ANS that we put them through, like, to select? Is it all the above? Like, the professionalism is incredible with the 17th, and their culture is fantastic.
Yeah. I think when you talk about what makes them that way, so I'll say, I think we definitely select guys that are in that mold. You know what I mean? And then which does well. And then the internal NCOs of the 17th help to then groom guys when they come in. Hey, this is the expectation. This is the standard you're going to be held to. You're going to get on board. And then you come in, and Ranger just continues to do that even more. I mean, I was an E5 when I first got there. So I was a young staff sergeant, and that kind of molded how I was going to be as an NCO, because they do such a good job of mentoring their young guys and making them NCOs. I mean, I think it's what it just, and then it just becomes instilled in you. I mean, you've had Tommy on several times. Tommy was my boss when I got to the 17th. So, TC will tell you it's the Ranger way.
Yeah. And he's fantastic. We haven't released his episodes yet, but we're going to. Like I said before, here we've got a lot of TACP content coming out, so we've tried to kind of space it out a little bit.
Yeah.
But if anybody ever asks for TACP content again, I'm just going to point. Yeah. I'm just going to you mean the 8 hours? The 8 hours of content that we just put out in a week? Oh,
okay. You had already mentioned a couple names. Although you didn't hit the moniker mentor, but we've had a lot of folks on. We've had Ivan Ruiz, who was a TACP, now a PJ, or now retired PJ, but he had mentioned, like, Buddy MacArthur helped guide him. He, and people along the way, even Tommy Case did the same thing. You've mentioned a couple of names, but like, who have some of those mentors been for you?
Sure.
Not just while you were at the 14th, but also at the 17th. But then, and in what way did they shape you or influence you?
I'm glad you mentioned this. So it may come as a surprise to some people. So I had, Match Like, I had a Keith Griefer as a young guy. I had the Tommy Cases at the 17th, the Josh Gavuliks, those kind of guys that were always there to kind of teach you and groom you. When I got to the 2-6, that was when I kind of started to learn how to be a senior NCO. And one of the mentors there was a PJ. It was Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo he was towards the end of his career. And, he had so much knowledge. It was insane. And I hadn't had, I guess, you're kind of out on your own at the 17th. And it's so, you're right there. It's just a TACP community, just with the Rangers. And so you kind of get lost in the Army all the time, and you don't get as much Air Force, which I know, people may not like that. Some people may like it. I thought it was great to get out of that and get to an Air Force base for a little bit when I got to Cannon, and to have him, because he was so, he knows how to play the game, if you will. He knew exactly how to play the game, the internal Air Force game, the ST game. He was incredible. So Yo-Yo was huge. So PJ, incredible mentor. And then while I was at Canada too, another one, Jamie Clark, has been a huge mentor for me. Another PJ. He was incredible. Brad Lentz, combat controller. So I met Brad Lentz on my first 17th deployment. He was with another SMU, and we were working together. And he was a tech sergeant at the time. I was a young staff sergeant. I was like, hey man, I asked him a billion questions, and he was super cool about it. Very humble. Was always willing to help. And then when I was at the 17th, I had heard from a friend that he was going to Cannon. He was leaving to go be the help stand up the 2-6 and be the squadron superintendent. So I called him and said, hey, is this true? Are you going out there? Yeah, he is. I talked to him on the phone for like an hour and a half. He was probably 90% of the reason why I went to Cannon, was so that I could go out there and work with him. So yeah, guys like that were huge for me inside that, the mentoring factor of it. And Jamie Clark continues to be. Jamie Clark is the reason why I got into the Legislative Fellows program. I had seen him at a conference, and I hadn't talked to him in a little while. This was when I think he had moved on from the 2-4 South position. And, he had said, hey, if you need anything, let me know. And I said, well, actually, I'd love to hear your advice on, I'm trying to, find something new outside the box, find an assignment that may be off the radar that nobody knows about. And he said, let me think about it and I'll let you know. Like a week later, he called me and said, hey, I think I got something for you, and sent me the ad for the Legislative Fellows program. And then it was kind of off and running after that. So
well, that's a perfect segue, because we really want to talk about this legislative, the Legislative Fellows program. So first of all, just describe, like, what is it? So, I mean, is it only for chiefs? Is it only for high ranking people? Is it for high performers? We have a lot of SOF that slide over and try to get into these legislative fellows, or they try to be an exec in order to, it's a little bit of placement and access for us to kind of win that human terrain, as it were. But, just explain for the folks out there, what is the legislative fellow and what actually do you do?
Okay. So it's started off as an officer program. Okay. As many things do. And then we kind of find our way inside that. So it started out as it's an officer, I think it's IDE, Intermediate Development Program. So that majors. Okay. So your majors who can either do Air Command Staff College in residence, or you can do it virtually and attend a program like this. It's along the same lines as the programs where they go to, they can go work at AFWorks or whatever. Basically, they step out of their career field. They're doing some kind of intermediate development, and they're continuing to get some kind of education. In 2015, the Air Force decided, hey, we need to start this on the enlisted side too. So in 2015, they created one position. They flipped one of the billets to be an enlisted billet. And they were only accepting E8 senior master sergeants at the time. They did that for about 3 or 4 years. And then they said, this program is amazing, because what we're getting exposed to is we take an enlisted E8 and we put their experience for the last 18 to 20 years into a congressional office, whether it's in the House or the Senate, and you advise a senator or a congressman or woman about what you've experienced the last 18 years. So when you're talking about Veterans Affairs, and you're talking about the Veterans Affairs Committee that's shaping legislation for the VA, for MILCON, hey, how many MILCON projects? If the Air Force has a MILCON project that they're trying to get across the finish line, you can help be that mouthpiece about, hey, why are we paying for this dormitory that's $300 million on, Davis Monthan Air Force Base? I know we just gave them that money. And then you can go and say, hey, man, they have asbestos, or hey, they need it because of X, Y, and Z. Hey, I've been in these dorms. They flip really quick because there's so much churn. All these things where you can lend your experience to that. Same thing, you do armed services committees. They're asking you about up and coming technologies. They're asking you about, things that you've seen and done overseas. They're asking you, we had the Afghanistan exfil while I was on the Hill. So my congressman is constantly asking me about Afghanistan, and he's asking about this and that. he was a former B-1 pilot, but not in the same era. So he has Air Force experience, but it was 20, 30 years separate from mine. So, things like that is what we were there to do. So the program then grew. A couple of years later, they did 2 people, 2 E8s for about 2 years. Then they grew to 3. And then the year I got selected, which was 2.5 years ago, I think it was summer of 2020, I moved here. I got picked up in December of 19. And at that time, they were doing 4 Air Force, 1 Space Force. So my class right now, that's what we brought to the Hill. The class after me did the same thing, but this coming year. So just a heads up, the ad is going to run in the next, I think, month. Starts in November. Is going to run, and I think they're growing it to 6 Air Force and 1 Space Force again, potentially maybe 2 Space Force in the future. But what you do is you go and advise a congressional member. And you're basically a staff assistant. You're on the staff for a senator or congressman. You wear a suit and tie or, whatever every day, dress in business casual, and you go and, pretend to be imposter syndrome, pretend to be a Hill staffer for a little while.
There you go. Yeah. You're a predator posing as a house pet up there. That's what you are. That's another Fight Club reference. It's going to be all Fight Club today.
Okay,
so
good.
You were there during the BAF JTE, and during that entire thing, was that the highest stress thing you've been involved in? Was there another initiative that you had to give your recommendation on that was even? I have to imagine Afghanistan had to be the most stressful time for you up there.
Yeah, Afghanistan was definitely the most stressful. I was there for 6 January. That was like day 3 or 4 on the job.
Oh wow!
So that was incredible to see too. I was in a house office building, so it was separate from the actual Capitol itself. But the Capitol Police came in. They were going door to door in the offices. Hey, you need to evacuate right now. There's a bomb threat right outside on the street of the building you're currently in. Grab your stuff, and we're leaving. And we were like, okay. So we all grabbed our stuff, and then they put us into the tunnels underneath the house office buildings that go to the Capitol, onto the Senate side and everything else. Stayed down there for a little bit, and then they were like, hey, this is not going to die down. You guys can just go home. And so we were like, all right. And they're going to lock down the parking garages. So if you want to get out now, just go home. Go ahead. So the guy I was carpooling
Be honest with it. Was everybody there just looking at you like, okay, we know you have a gun. Just pull out a gun. We need your help. Like, was everybody just looking at you like the face of, I've never been in this scenario before?
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of people freaking out. Tons of people scared. And at the time when we got evacuated, I was like, oh, we're definitely going back to the office. Like, they're going to clear this, and this is not a big thing. Like, we'll go back, and we'll go back to work. But when we were down there for about an hour or two, and then they were like, no, it's only going to get worse. And then they just kept showing the people coming down, towards the Capitol from the rally or whatever. And it was like, oh, this isn't going away. You just go home for the day and come back tomorrow. And so we left, and I was about halfway down the freeway when they ended up breaching the Capitol. But yeah, crazy.
Wild.
The Afghanistan withdrawal was definitely different, though.
I would have to imagine. What was the general feeling as the Afghanistan withdrawal happened? Because there was lead up. It's just not everybody was aware of the way that the media portrayed this thing is, in the dead of night, we just kind of like cut the zipper lines and, we got out. But I can tell you from being involved in the conversations, this was weeks and months planned out. So as we were leading up to Afghanistan, what was the general feeling up there?
I think it was from my office, because, you get your perspective from your office and then talking to the other fellows on the Hill. It was really, we were just concerned about getting the people out that we wanted to get out. And when you start talking about the amount of networking that people have, I mean, there were hundreds and hundreds of phone calls coming into the congressman's office every single day. Hey, so-and-so still there. Hey, they've got a family member. They know this person. They were an interpreter that worked with the Americans. Like, so you're trying to weed through. We had a spreadsheet that was going. It was just, and they would call his district office. They would call, the DC office. And so they just continued to so what became overwhelming was keeping track of all these people that we were trying to help get out, and then finding ways. And then we had a Slack message with all the other fellows that were going in there, and everybody's like, hey, we got this going. Hey, does anyone move over to this gate? If you move all your people to this gate, we can get them in, and this and that. And so there was tons of hey, I need, bartering and trading. I need to get somebody out. Does anybody still have a flight that's got seats? Is this and that? Hey, my congressional member's asking about this. Does anybody have information about this? So it was a lot of that, a lot of just trying to use your network, your connections to get people out and to help them. But
wow,
it was intense. We were definitely working long hours that week, a week or two.
But after that week, did anybody up there ask you? Because I'm assuming you spent a fair bit of time over in that country. Did anybody come up and ask you like how that felt for you, or how that impacted you, or what your opinion was on kind of how it all went down, and your general, overarching feeling about Afghanistan in general after that?
Yeah. So I was lucky in a Senate office. The senator has about 60 people on the staff, right? So you don't get as much FaceTime with a senator as you do with a House member. A House member only has about maybe 10 people on the staff, and that House member you get to see on a daily basis when they're in the office, when they're there in DC working every day. So the congressman would come back every day and he would talk every day about something, or he'd be like, "Hey, everyone, come in the office and let's have a talk." Or he would just do a drive-by and just want to talk about Afghanistan, or you want to tell war stories or whatever. So yeah, there were several conversations we had about it. To include like, "Hey, how do you feel? Are you good?" Or, they would, go to things like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Or, and then when the Abbey Gate situation happened, then it kind of escalated, and, you're watching the videos of the C-17s coming in and out and the people hanging on them. And, there's a lot of questions about like, for people who haven't been, like, why are they so desperate? Why do they want out so bad? You know what I mean? Just your perspective on the situation, on what you saw while you were there, why people are so desperate. Because if you've never been and you're just here and that's all you've grown up with is seeing us fight, but you don't understand the culture. It's more about like, hey, why are they acting this way? You know what I mean? Why can't they just go to the border and drive across the border and leave? And you're like, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
So
they're
they're
people on the
definitely
other side of that border might not be. Yeah, the people on the other side of that border might not be excited for you to come across, and they don't value human life the way that we do.
Right. Exactly.
But also with that, do you feel like a lot of pressure to you're the face of the community. You're the face of not just the Air Force, but you're the face of TACP up there. You're the face of all these other things. Like, do you have a hard time like figuring out what your personal opinion is? Like when the House rep comes to you and asks you your opinion, like, is it just your personal opinion, or are you also trying to represent for your entire community? Like trying to balance that out and not make it sound like, like how do you differentiate between the two, and what's that like?
Well, one, you cannot have a political opinion. So I have zero political opinion. And that was from Jump Street. I told them that. You make it very clear. Like, I don't care politically one way or another. Like, there's good and bad on both sides. You know what I mean? I agree sometimes. I disagree. Like that's not what I'm here to do. I'm literally here to work hard for you, to lend you my perspective, and to push and help the DoD initiative, the Air Force agenda, the special warfare agenda, whatever that is. Right? I'm completely bipartisan, and I don't care. Whatever is happening is happening. So once you get that out of the way, then it's more about, hey, what is your opinion on this? And there's definitely times where you can give a personal opinion, and you just, hey, this is my personal opinion about situations, never about politics, but about situations, yes. Right. And then there are other times, I think, when you say, hey, like, I understand, but you have to look at the bigger picture where people say, things like this. I'll give you a great example. There are people who think that, they were upset in the aftermath of, hey, General Milley, right? I'll just say the General Milley, for instance. You had a lot of people that were saying, oh, what's he doing? He's killing us. Like, he's making the worst decisions ever. And I'm like, I had congressional members saying the same thing. Like, General Milley, he needs to go. He's got to go. He needs to resign. This is a failed, exfil. And I'm like, listen, first of all, you need to put something in perspective right now. I have a boss. You have a boss. Guess what? General Milley's got a boss. And when the boss tells him it's time to move out, it's time to move out. It doesn't matter what advice he has given him. Whatever orders he's giving, he's doing. And so I think that, has to always come into it for frame of reference when you're there. Because, you'd have to talk them down a lot. They get very emotional. They want to be political about certain things. And you have to be like, hey, don't look at this politically. He's not looking at this politically. He's looking at, I have a job at hand. Here's what I have to do. I'm going to move out and do it to the best of my ability. But he's still taking orders. He's still doing everything that he can do to try to fulfill the orders that he's been given. So there's a lot of like the political crossover, I think, when they get worked up about certain issues, and you have to just kind of tamp it down and be like, all right, listen, let's look at this holistically. Let's not have a knee-jerk reaction here. Do that when the cameras are rolling, but in the office, let's just think about this for a second, you know?
Yeah.
This is a political theater in here. I don't need you to do that in here. Like, we need to have a rational conversation in here.
This isn't the stage. This is, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm sure, like, this is one other thing is you're so high up there, and like the Congress people are so high up there, and I think there's the intent of legislation or policies to impact, right? That's where you kind of like shorten that chain, and that's what you're there to provide, right? Because like I think it's easy that high up to like put out a policy and assume that you know what the impact is going to be, but like you've been down at the bottom floor and seen the impacts, and are you there to translate kind of what you think could happen based on these policies, that the impact is not always clear from up there on the hill?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you try to impact it. If they want to push legislation, right, and then they're going to push legislation. It's really your job to kind of help shape that legislation so that it fits as best for everybody. So they get what they want out of it, whether that's to just show their constituents that they've pushed some legislation, whether that's to really make an impact within DoD, or whether it's to, just kind of, politically gain some points. Hey, look what I did. You know what I mean? Get some political wins. Your job's really there to kind of provide perspective. Like, well, hey, if we ask for this, here's the second and third order effects. So you're kind of providing that context. Well, if we go this way, that may not be good for these members. Let's take STAP. You know what I mean? STAP has been a huge talking point this year with internal, obviously, internal to the Air Force, internal to DoD, but it's also a hot topic on the Hill, because when you're talking about budgets and money and constraints and all these new programs you want to pay for, the first thing that members say was like, well, okay, you're getting a 4.6% pay increase. And you know what I mean? Like, well, they're making so much more money. You know what I mean? They're making,
I hate to involve math in this, but if I'm doing my math right, 8.3 year over year inflation minus a 4% raise, we're still taking a 4% pay cut. That's just pop. You know what?
Yep.
I'll demonetize myself, guys. I'm going to hit mute. I'm going to sit over here.
But you have you have members who see those things and they say, hey, the money's got to come from somewhere. You want to do all these other things, you got to tell me what's not important or what's important. And so, they don't understand. They're not A1C Snuffy making $30,000 a year who can barely pay for, have a house or an apartment and, be able to put, have electricity and water and everything else to put food on the table. So there's those contextual things that you've got to be able to bring that in and not be afraid to say something like, hey, well, this is why this matters to these people. It may not matter to you and me, you know what I mean? But it matters to the airmen. And if I had been an airman in that perspective and in those shoes, that's I would be hurting too. I'd be like, no, we cannot do this. I cannot afford that right now. So
yeah, and that's a real struggle that we're dealing with every single day. Anytime I get a new airman that shows up, or not even an airman, I like sometimes
staff
captains, brand new
staff sergeants, E6,
that are like, dude, how do I? And I've got a master sergeant right now that just got here, and with the interest rate and the housing here in Vegas, he's like, dude, I'm literally renting a couch off.
Right.
I mean, because he can't afford any place, know. And I'm not saying that that's everybody's situation. Everybody's situation is different, but I mean that is real. And these A1Cs, senior airmen, like, it's stuff that we're dealing with every single day. So it's frustrating, especially from my end, because there's only so much I can do about it. But did you ever, working with people up there, did you ever have anybody that just wouldn't listen to you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. You definitely have people that are not going to listen to you.
Knew it.
Yeah.
Knew it.
Yeah.
Those flat teeth, leaf eating. Tell us who your least favorite representative is and why.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, whoa. You can't get it. You can't get into that. Can't get into that. But you can definitely have.
We'll edit that out.
You can't talk about. Well. No. So the members, you really have no say in it. So I'll step back and say, so the program's 3 years long. the first 6 months you spend in what's called a developmental tour. So when you guys had Josh Leonard on a few weeks ago, this services now alleged liaison, he's in that dev tour right now. So he hasn't gone to the Hill. In the dev tour, you can be placed anywhere. You can go to RAND. You can be in, the Air Force component. I got lucky. I went to the State Department. So I worked in the State Department's Ledge Affairs for 6 months, which was kind of cool, getting to see the inside of the State Department while they were in a administration change, leading up to elections, things like that. So that was all going on. Interesting. At the same time, the Air Force is going to pay for you to go to Georgetown and go and get a graduate certificate in legislative studies. So the officers getting the same exact thing. So you're in there with all of them. You do that for, like I said, the first 6 months. And then in January, when the new Congress starts, you do January to December. So you do a full year on the Hill. And you do not get to pick the office you're in. You have zero say in what office you get placed in. The majority of the time, the offices that get fellows are members that are on either the House Armed Services Committee, Senate Armed Services Committee, or the House Appropriations Committee, Subcommittee Defense, or Senate Armed Appropriations Committee, Subcommittee Defense. Obviously, because they're defense related, it's where you can provide perspective. Now, you do get people who get assigned to members that are only on Veterans Affairs committees or things like that. So you spend a year doing that. And then the backside of that, the Air Force and DoD goes, hey, we'd like 18 months return on investment. We just given you all this education and this really cool experience. We want 18 months for you to come back in to the building, to the Pentagon, and pay it back. And basically, you can go same places. You can go in, you can do like joint staff. You can do, I'm working in OSD Ledge Affairs. You can go back into Air Force Ledge Affairs, something like that. So they leverage the education experience you've just gotten, and they do that for 18 months. And so once that's done, then you go back to your career field. So like right now, my duty AFSC, I'm at 9 November. I'll go back to my duty AFSC being 1Z3, when this is all said and done, and needs of the Air Force. And to a comment Aaron made earlier, it's not just for E8s and E9s. So we're trying to make the program younger. It was only E8s. You can't be an E9 select. They take your name off the list if they find out you've applied, and that happens. You can make it in the program. You just can't have made it before the program. But we're about to make it so that we focus on, it's going to be E7 and E8s, because what we found is we're getting a lot of people who transition out of the military towards the end of this. Like they don't have much time on the backside if they did a 3-year commitment or whatever to get in. And so we're trying to make it a little younger to get more time. If we're making strategic leaders with the intent of the program, then we want more, I guess, strategic leader time in the Air Force on the backside.
But that goes right back. I mean, that makes sense to me because it goes right back to whenever you're at the Senior NCO Academy, you're at JSOFC or something like that. You go, man, I really wish I had this information prior, in my previous rank.
Right.
So that's really good because as an E7, maybe you even make senior out of there.
Sure. Like you're going to get promoted.
Unit. Right. Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean, like just the knowledge base and the experience that you get to have is huge.
Yeah.
So like kind of with that, then I know since where you're at now, you probably get a lot of Air Force and DoD leadership engagement and stuff like that, just because you're walking the same halls with these folks. But
sure.
How about when you were at the State Department, kind of working on the Hill? Did you get much Air Force and DoD leadership engagement?
No, not the State Department. So zero at the State Department. That was really all focused on, just their internal workings and what they were doing at embassies and things like that. Their own kind of legislation that they were working on inside the building. Now, yeah, you get a lot. So the assistant secretary that I work for literally is the senior advisor for the SecDef and DepSecDef. So we go to engagements all the time between members and, principals or SMEs inside the Pentagon. We take them to meetings on the Hill. I mean, you're talking about high level SES engagement for whatever portfolio you're working on. You're taking them to the Hill to meet members and have discussions about things that DoD is working on. And then you're like you're saying, you're in that realm where you're working with undersecretaries of defense, assistant secretaries of defense, where you're managing their legislative portfolio and helping to kind of shape the engagements that they have, because those are then important, because if I'm taking them to the Hill to discuss certain things with members, that's going to then shape legislation. Because most of the time, the senators or congressmen, they want to engage with DOD and they want to be helpful. And it matters for us because we need to make sure that we're then taking them to be helpful and not like, you're not, you know what I mean? You're the liaison. I'm still doing liaison right now. You know what I mean? I'm not doing between the Army and the Air Force. What I'm doing it between congressional members and, members of the DOD. And I'm like, all right, hey, listen, we need to get in the room and talk. You tell them you're all great ideas over here. You make sure you put them into legislation, and then we'll be good to go.
That's why you're a good fit.
Yeah.
That's it. Yep.
I'm
you're a connector. You're the glue guy.
Special warfare needs, it's an untapped, I think, resource for our guys. We definitely need to continue to do this. The Army does a good job, and MARSOC, there's a MARSOC guy in the program right now. I think he's the second or third guy in the program. The Army's been putting ODA officers through this. The Navy has SEALs, most of the time SEAL officers, but there have been a few, I think, enlisted. But the Navy has the smallest program of that. But yeah, MARSOC has definitely caught on. There's a MARSOC guy in the dev program. He'll be in Josh's class that he's getting ready to go to the Hill. He works in OSD right now, so we've had some good war stories. But yeah, he's good.
Yeah,
but we need to get better at it.
Yeah, like everything, all the time. But like obviously, I think like Peach was saying, you're a good fit up there. You've been successful, but I'm just thinking like you were talking about your mentors earlier, and I'm thinking about Yo-Yo, LZ, and Jamie, and the way that we all talk to each other, and then going from like that environment up to the Hill. Like, what kind of a culture shock was that as you got up there, and communication style might be a little different, or I'm assuming, or maybe it's not. I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, it's definitely different. I mean, you have to, to be honest though, there are staffers in these member offices and staffers that work on the Hill that are way more blunt than we are. I'm like, well, you can't say that. What do you say? You can't say that in here.
Would you
imagine it? Yeah, imagine the TACP chief sitting in that room going, "Whoa, hey,
yeah, there are certain things you're just like, you start looking around like, whoa, what did you just say that in here? Yeah, and you're like,
when you start reading the room, when you're like, you just kind of like back away, and you're like looking to see the reaction. Like nobody else is reacting. And
I didn't say that. That wasn't me.
Yeah,
like this is a fist fight where I'm from.
I know.
Like, you can't say that. Yeah. Somebody's got to go.
And there are certain people too where you're like, I did not expect that, and it catches you off guard even more. You're just like, whoa. And you kind of look around to see if anyone else had the same reaction, and there's a couple of people like, it was not as buttoned up. You know what I mean? As I thought it would be. There is definitely a lot of honest conversation happening in there. I will also say too, the political theater that you see on TV with members, because that's the other thing people would say, like, well, how are they? Are they just like completely off their rocker? Is it the exact same thing you see on TV? And it's absolutely not. I mean, TV is what you see on TV that is for a reason. You know what I mean? That is that is politics. That is political theater. They are doing that to send a message, to play to certain things, to get messages across. When it is more in office and more, out on the floor voting and things like that, there are a lot of members who are like, I never thought they would be friends. And they're all friends, and they all talk, and they all have each other's phone numbers. And you know what I mean? It's like flipping a switch. It's like, us talking right here, right now. And then, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like we go out there and I'm like, oh, these guys, they're ridiculous. The One's Ready podcast. Well, and you know what I mean? The cameras
that's
are
going to happen anyway. What if I told you it's a real thing and it's
I know it is. I just, yeah. But yeah, so I mean, you have those people that are out there. Yeah. That are, yeah. So
that's amazing.
A lot of honest conversations. Yeah. It's definitely not what I thought it was.
Okay, well, don't think here. I just want you to start ripping off. Just start name dropping. Let's get some names out. I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
As soon as Peaches hits unrecord, I'll give you all of them.
Exactly. I'm already responsible for one edit this podcast. I think I'm going to call it good. I just keep listening to you, and I hear so many things that we talk about, but you're presenting it in a different optic. People always ask us, okay, what kind of job can I do in AFSPECWAR? What kind of things will AFSPECWAR open the door? An enlisted TACP with combat experience is literally telling us about his time advising congressmen, House of Representatives, governors, all the way up to SES. For those of you that are not tracking, SES is like an 011 equivalent. It's no kidding, some of the highest rank that you can get inside of the United States government. Like, no kidding, turning this huge ship that we call the DoD. So what do you feel like in your TACP life, right? Like, as everything has led up to now and all of your experiences have led up to now, what through the pipeline did you learn as a TACP that you're no kidding applying up there in this political environment?
That's a good question. That's a very good question.
Thanks, guys. Yeah.
That was a good one. That's deep on that one. Let's see. What did I learn? I think I probably learned throughout that, kind of like what Trent said earlier, everything one is a competition. And I think really for me, I'm trying to set my own path. So I used to tell young guys all the time, and I still tell people, your career is your career. So the minute I tell someone, like, you got to go check that box, man, like you have to go do X, Y, and Z, because if you don't, you're just not going to go anywhere. So I don't subscribe to that, I guess, philosophy. I subscribe to this is your career. How do you want to, I guess, live your career? What do you want to do? For me, I wanted to do things that were unique and outside the box, and I guess just kind of be satisfied with what I was doing every single day, because I had worked for 3 years where I was completely unsatisfied before I came in. So for me, it was finding opportunities, I think, that really drive home what I want to do with my career, if that makes sense. Like, do something unique. That's what I said. So like when I was at the 14th, what do I want to do next? I want to go to SOF. I want to do that for a while. I went to Canada to try something new, to try a 2 series, to step outside the like normal, boxes of like stay in the 17th longer, or, go somewhere else. Like I wanted to try a 2 series. Oh yeah, by the way, they're building a squadron from scratch. Cool. That sounds fun. Let's try that. Do things that are challenging yet completely outside. And if somebody tells you like, oh, don't do that, it'll ruin your career. Chances are it's probably not going to ruin your career. It's going to make you completely different from them, which people don't like different. You know what I mean? Same thing. Like when people said, don't go be the AFSPECWAR TACP, worst job ever. You'll never, it's terrible. No, it actually wasn't. Yeah. I learned a ton. Yes, it's on staff, and that part was rough. Thankfully, though, I meet peaches, and we end up crushing it and having a great time. That worked out well. Same thing for this. What can I do that's unique? It's completely different. Like, I want to go off on an island, you know what I mean? Like, point me in the right direction and just tell me to go, and I'm going to go. And tell me what the mission is, I'll knock it out. That's kind of what I want. Like, I wanted to do things that were just completely like different. And going forward, I want to continue to do the same thing. Like, I don't want to have to do the cookie cutter thing. Some people, that is their thing. I'm not saying that it's not, but yeah, I wanted to come off and kind of do something different.
No, and you obviously have, and that's a great answer to a great question. So, you hit on a little bit, and usually what we like to do, especially with folks that are as articulate as you are, kind of ask advice to the demographic, which is 15 to 35-year-olds that are actually listening to us, that are wanting to come in and be AFSPECWAR and kind of have all kinds of questions. But like, what's some advice that you can give to them as they're coming in to do what the 4 of us actually do?
Be the best at every single thing that you do. If you're literally not trying to win or be the best at every single thing that you do, you're just wasting your own time. And I can tell you right now, there's 4 or 5 other people that are right there next to you that are trying to be the best. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to move right past you. And those are going to be the people that continue to just excel and get what they want, because they're crushing it every single day. Like, I used to preach this in the team room every single time. It was we had a team brief that would hang on the wall, and in giant letters, it said, be the best. That doesn't mean I have to be the best, and be completely focused on myself. I can be the best teammate. I can be the best husband. I can be the best father. I can do all those things. That doesn't mean you're going to achieve it. And there's going to be people out there forever that are going to be better than you at certain things. Like, I no doubt, I am definitely not the smartest. I'm not the fastest. I'm not X, Y, and Z. But guess what? I'm going to continue to work at that. Even to this day, I get up and grind every single day. If you are not doing that, then man, you're in the wrong place. It's just flat out like, this is not for you. I don't even know how to say it more clear than that. Like, I used to tell the same thing I tell young guys all the time in the team room. Same thing. And I know you guys do too. If you're not trying to be the best shooter, if you're not trying to be the best operator, best JTAC, best PJ, best special reconnaissance, I have no time for that. There's not enough time already to deal with everything else that's going on inside that room, and with the pipeline and everything else. I have no time for that. So you're going to get left behind, and I'm going to continue to move out with everyone else who's trying to be the best. So.
Okay. Well, take that to heart, folks, because
that's a sound clip.
I gotta, that is a sound bite, but I gotta go like work out or something.
Yeah. Do you just want to take my spot on this podcast? Yeah. Because I'm not needed here. Like, I'm just more of a color commentator at this point. Like,
we got to keep you around for Fight Club comments, movie quotes. Be able to keep stuff like that going.
That's nice. Yeah, well, I'm about to take Wyatt go-karting. And so now I'm going to go beat his ass on the track.
Right. And then just tell him, like, dude, were you trying to be the best? I mean, come on. Yeah.
Were you trying to be the best? And not listen to Chief?
Yeah, come on.
Just as I'm hitting him.
Yeah.
I didn't see it today, Wyatt, because these things don't have rear view mirrors on them. Knucklehead.
TJ, really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, guys.
And definitely a great person to reach out to if you have any questions.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you have got a line of people that would be naming you as their mentor. So definitely appreciate your friendship, everything that we've done in the past on the staff, and look forward to continuing to work with you.
Same.
Everybody out there, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave us a review,